Okay, so next we're going to add our handlers for the following. So a user can follow another user. And these are both going to be command handlers. And I'll just tidy things up. And inside the application folder, we'll add another folder for another new feature. And we'll call this followers. And let's add another new class inside here. And we'll simply call this add to add a new following. And this is going to be a command handler, so let's use the snippet we created earlier. And what we'll do is we'll just import everything we need. And grab all of the system.threading tasks and system.threading and system for the exception. And what we need to pass inside here is the username of the user that we're going to be following. So we'll say prop string and username. And what we also want to get is the username of the currently logged in user. So what we'll do is we'll inject our iUser accessor in here as well. Call it user accessor, and we'll just bring in application interfaces and also initialize the field from parameter and remove this dot. And what we want to do is we want to get both of the users, the one that we're passing in as the username along with the request, and also the current user. And the current user is going to be the observer in this case. So we'll say observer or var observer equals await and context and users dot single or default async, and bring in entity framework core, and just as per normal we'll get the or compare the username equal to underscore user accessor dot get current username, and then we'll get the target. So we'll say var target equals await context dot users dot single or default async, and then we'll say x goes to username that's equal to request.username. So the observer is always going to be the currently logged in user in this case. And we don't need to check necessarily whether this user exists, because if we don't have anything inside our user accessor, then we're not logged in as this user and this whole request doesn't get accessed, because we have to be authenticated in order to use a controller that's not our login or register based controller. But we do want to check the target, because this one could potentially be a made up username. So what we'll do is we'll say if the target is equal to null, then we'll just throw a new REST exception and bring in application errors, and we'll say HTTP status code and bring in system.net and say not found, and for the object error we'll just say new and say user equals not found. And what we want to do next is check to see if we have an existing following, and what we'll do is we'll get a reference to following. So we'll say var following equals await and context dot followings dot single or default async. And what we want to check here is if we've got an entry in our followings table with both the observer ID that matches the observer ID and the target ID, which of course matches the target's ID. So we'll say that x.observer ID is equal to observer.id and x.target ID is equal to target.id and capital I. Now, if the following exists, that means the user is already following this particular user. So what we'll do, we'll check to see if the following is not equal to null. Then we'll throw a new REST exception and we'll say http status code.bad request, and we'll say in the new object, we'll say user equals you are already following this user. And if the following is equal to null, then what we want to do here is create a new following. So we'll say following equals new user following, and what we'll do, we'll set the observer equal to observer and the targets equal to targets. And then what we'll do is we'll say context.followings.adds and the following. And then the rest, as per normal, can just stay the same. So this is our handler for adding a new following, and what we'll take a look at next is the handler for deleting the following.